Well, good morning, Empowered Soul Network team. Wow, what a start to the week. Did you guys see the eclipse yesterday? I don't know if anybody got a chance to minimally see the pictures. My daughter Crystal was in Cleveland seeing the totality, and it was extraordinary. So, we're going to continue that energy of prosperity and expansion and shimmering and shining. I have the distinct privilege of interviewing today Lewis Harrison. And I'm gonna read this just a little bit, Lewis, so I make sure I get it all out. Lewis is a he has such a distinguished career. He's an author of over 40 different books. He is a past radio host of NPR Radio, National Public Radio, done over 20,000 interviews in his career. Well, I got to go back and look at some of those, Lewis. Those are amazing. He leads many spiritual groups, helping people to find balance in their spiritual work with the material world and how to make that all connect and come alive. So he's calling in from Toronto, Canada, I think, at the moment. Welcome, Lewis.
Yeah, we're there for just a couple of days passing through from Southeast Asia, but we're here now.
Well,
So
there you go. Thank you so much for joining us today.
thank you for
Tell,
having me. I'm honored.
Lewis, I think I want to start right off because right before we went live here, you were telling me about some of the passions that you have and so on. All the things that you've done in your career has led you to this feeling of something that's just really welling up in your heart, from what I gathered. What is it that's inspiring you of late?
Well, I'm an empath. That means I feel what other people feel, and people suffer a lot. And the more spiritually oriented people tend to be, the more they tend to suffer because they're in the material world and they feel like a stranger in a strange land. They're coming from the heart. They're coming from love and kindness and compassion and empathy and wisdom and goodness and the appreciation of beauty. And they understand grace and what's sacred and surrender and patience. And they're surrounded by a world that is material, built around instant gratification and anger and lust and greed and vanity. I'm not judging those things. I'm just saying that's what surrounds them. So I understand the suffering that people have when they're spiritually oriented. They're channels, they're balancing chakras, they're living a spiritual life and they have to hide, inside their own third eye and inside their house to avoid ordinary people. So I had seen the movie A Beautiful Mind about a guy named John Nash who won the Nobel Prize for game theory. And game theory really caught my attention and I did some research on it and actually met one of the original 26 people at Los Alamos. So if you saw the movie Oppenheimer, or, Harvey Slayton was in that group. He was 97 years old when I met him. And he was a student of Zen at this point. He's 97-year-old, invented the atom bomb, is a student of Zen and Taoism. And I told him that I had an absolute passion for the idea that life is a game and that somehow a spiritual person could create stability and maximize their potential and be effective and efficient and precise and productive and whole and come from their heart and not get crushed by the world. And
Wow.
so I studied with him for eight years, and I created a system called Harrison's Applied Game Theory, how to live in the world as if it's a game.
Beautiful, beautiful. Before we dive into some of that, can you take us back earlier in your life and career and what was it like to be that empath, maybe not even knowing that you were? What were some of the feelings and things that were happening to you? I think if you could share a little bit of that, that might give help to people to
Well,
recognize that they have that
yeah,
themselves and maybe there's hope.
I was an outlier. I was a freak. I was lonely. I cried all the time. I got bullied. I got terrible grades in school. Um,
Hmm.
and the people who tried to help me the most ended up being students of mine. But that's an interesting point. I went to a high school with 3,000 kids, and I had a crush on three. You're in high school. You have a crush on these girls. They don't talk to you. They're cheerleaders or they're part of the in crowd. I ended up as an adult. I'm 72. I ended up as an adult coaching all three of the women I was in love with in high school. And they didn't
Wow.
even call, they didn't, they called me up or emailed me and said, I want to coach with you. And I saw the name and I said, did you go to this high school in 1968? And then they thought I was a psychic. How would I know what high school? I said, because I had a crush on you in high school. That's how I know. So, yeah, it was rough for me till I was about 22 years old. And when I was 22 years old, they thought I was on the spectrum. I got sent to community colleges where I barely survived and smoked a lot of weed and was lonely and, got involved with radical politics and, for those who know those names, I was friendly with Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman. I mean, that's where I was. And I had an FBI file on me for organizing anti-war marches. And then I got a mentor, someone who saw exactly what was going on, took me under their wing and guided me. An old Italian shaman Zen master who was a barber in the small town that I was living in school. And that was my beginning. It was awful, absolutely horrific till I was about 22 years old.
What were some of the first steps that your mentor took you on? What were the beginnings of helping that change begin to happen?
Well, it's a nice story, and I'll keep it short, but it's a nice story. And by the way, when I was 15 years old, when I was 14 years old, a girl that I was necking with, you're 14 years old, you get a girl in your neck. She gave me a copy of a book called The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts. Alan Watts. That's 1965. I'm 14 years old, but she kissed me. So I read the book because she told me to, because she kissed me. And that book changed my life. Then 2 years later, a woman my mother was crying because she was so concerned about how I was going to end up Vietnam and getting in trouble in gangs in the South Bronx. She gave me a book by Krishnamurti, who I later was a personal student of. I was with Krishnamurti in 1973 and 1984, which seems like yesterday, but I guess to a listener, it's like 40 years
40
ago.
years ago.
So yeah. So Krishnamurti and then Ram Dass,
Yeah.
and then I was hitchhiking. I won't go on with this, but it's a minute or less. I was hitchhiking. Some people picked me up and I told them what I was about, and they said, there's a barber in this small town. He's extraordinary. And I hitchhike and I walk in the door and he looks at me and says, second floor, third room to the right. Dinner's at 6. And I ended up having dinner with a bunch of people just like me. And he was a Zen master shaman, raised as a Roman Catholic with a barber shop in a small town in the middle of nowhere. Never wrote a book. There's no videos of him. Everything that's known about him is known through me because I was his senior student. His name was Vincent, by the way, Vincent Calora, martial artist, the whole thing in a small town.
So what
You
was
know,
that first feeling that you had when you walked upstairs and you had dinner with these like and kind
I
souls?
think it's probably the feeling that people get when they think they've found Christ. I mean, I'm not a Christian in the traditional sense of the word, though I certainly like Jesus and what he taught. Uh, but I think it's that kind of feeling that I had gotten redemption, I had gotten saved, that this sad, poor, lonely, empath, bullied boy had finally come home.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. And Empowered Soul Network,
Thanks.
Louis, I hear these stories so often about this first step that people take, and to hear your story is very inspiring. Talk to me about, so from there you began what for me is a very distinguished career. What Talk about the creativity that began to come out of this awakening.
Well, you have to make a living at something. And my mother was concerned. I was driving a taxi cab. I got a bachelor's degree in philosophy, an undergraduate degree, I think they call it now. And I was lost. And my mother God bless my mother, she gave me three options. You're going to go to school, get a career. You're not spending your whole life driving a taxi cab, though. It's an honorable profession. You have a choice of auto mechanics, hair cutting or massage school. So I went to massage school in 1975. And of course, over the next 50 years, I learned about Reiki and polarity therapy. I became a master at some of these techniques. Then I studied jujitsu and Aikido. And then I'm doing a series now, by the way. I'm writing a series on called Touch Somatics, which is the integration of massage, hands-on healing, energy medicine, and movement re-education, like Alexander Technique and Feldenkrais, real holism, not just
Right.
holism in words, but taking people through movement re-education while they're journaling and doing inner child work and channeling and getting their chakras balanced. So I had a career as a healer for about 50 years. And then what happened, and for those of you who are young or older, you'll understand, every young kid in the block took a Tony Robbins coaching workshop and became a coach. It's very hard for me, and as an old master, and I don't call myself a master, but as a person with some mastery, to compete with a 20-year-old model who has a hot video series on YouTube about how they're going to, be a master mentor. So what I did ultimately through my journey is I pulled away from that private practice kind of thing and started creating intensive, comprehensive courses for $5 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, on how to
So,
become a high-paid professional speaker, how to do affiliate marketing, herbs, homeopathy, energy healing, chi, chakra balancing. They pay $5 a month, and they get your lesson every week for 52 weeks.
there you go. Tell me a little bit about what it was like to interview all the folks you interviewed on NPR. What was your takeaway from now as you look back on that, engaging all these people?
Well, I think that two things, three things. For everybody wants to have love and everybody wants to make a living. That's the most basic thing. People want love. People want to make a living. Being famous um, doesn't get you love. Being rich doesn't get you love. If you're not doing your grounded spiritual work, you're going to suffer no matter what. And the greatest interview I ever did, and it's going to shock people, was Billy Dee Williams. Billy Dee Williams, a black actor. He was in the Star Wars universe. He's 89 years old now. He's a real heartthrob for women in the 1970s. He's a scholar. He's a genius. He's a polymath. Caught me by surprise. And NPR would send me to New York once a year. And I would sit in a chair with a big picture of myself behind me. And people would literally get online and interview to get approved to be on NPR. So that was an amazing experience.
Wow. So do you find that no matter what you do, whether it's a Reiki class or teaching your life on planet Earth as a game, that there's still that fundamental love and energy that permeates it, that no matter what culture you're from, they're
I, I
looking
would
for that.
I would say yes. And you can tell by my style, I'm a tough love kind of guy. So I'm gonna make you laugh. I'm in a group that, 6 months ago, the big thing was challenges. Maybe you do them, I don't know. Summits. Summits. Everybody's doing a summit. I'm not ridiculing it. Summits. Everybody did summits. Now they're doing challenges. So I'm in a group where nobody likes me, except for the guy who runs the group. He likes me. In fact, he takes one of my $5 courses, but doesn't tell anybody because, he doesn't want to look like he's favoring me. So I did this in a group last week, and believe me, nobody thought it was funny. I said, I'm doing a challenge. It's a 1-day challenge, not a 5-day challenge, not a 7-day, a 1-day challenge. You make a commitment to what you're going to do. 24 hours later, I send someone to your house. If you haven't done it, we taser you. So nobody thought that was funny because, everybody is delusional and BSing themselves and manipulating themselves that they're spiritual and world is top and you can't really make money because it's so dark and all that cognitive bias. People want to suffer. often. And they use spirituality, and there's a term for it, by the way, spiritual materialism. It's really materialism, but we try and pass it off as spirituality. So I tell people I am their Sherpa climbing the Mount Everest of their life. If you don't have the right gloves, you're going to freeze to death. You don't have the right tent, you're going to freeze to death. So I like to work in my own work with people who are ready, willing, and able. That's the term I use. Are you ready? Are you willing? Are you able? If you are, you may need inspiration, may need motivation, you may need information or resources, but you're not BSing yourself. That's the place where I live as a mentor.
So for the people who are listening out there that may be coaches or whoever they are, because we have a lot of different service providers in all this, what are some of the signs that people can recognize that somebody is even taking the first step to being willing and able and coachable, trainable? What are some of the signs that show up as that person's beginning to walk towards the door?
That's a great question. And interviewers always say, that's a great question. But you notice this is the first time I said that. That really is a great question. And I haven't been asked that before. The first sign that someone's not ready, willing, and able, if that may not be the exact question, but I think it flows. For someone who's not ready, willing, and able, the first sign is they complain. And by the way, I was a mentalist. I was a trained stage mentalist where, the kind of people
Yep.
who, so some of my training is in that. And I could pass that off as shape shifting and shamanism, even though it's just, tricks of the mind. But yeah, if someone complains, they're not ready, willing, and able. The first time you complain, you're not ready, willing, and able.
What's this? What are the signs that are showing up that they are ready, willing, and able?
They're not complaining. And they're looking for a mentor. Look, this is for coaches. Because a lot of time coaches think that they're Jesus or Buddha and that they're going to save this person you're working with. I'm big on support systems. I have 4 mentors I talk to a day. I got my act pretty well together. I talk to 4 mentors a day. You're going to count as one of them, Paul, for today. And what I have one that pushes me up. I have to have clear intention. I have to have a clear intention.
Okay.
I have to have a clear desired outcome. Those are the 2 things. For those who are big on manifestation, if your intention is clear and your desired outcome is clear, manifestation happens automatically, spontaneously. There's a saying from Goethe, when you're ready, willing, and able, all manner of unforeseen events and circumstances arise spontaneously, miraculously, and without discipline and willpower to bring your vision to fruition. I could say that again. I'm not going when you have it on tape. So
yeah, we got it. We got it. So
if someone's ready, willing, and able, and their intention is clear and the desired outcome is clear, manifestation begins to unfold automatically. Then you need someone to push you up, pull you up, and balance your angel wings on each side so you don't fall over. But once you got those pieces in place, and by the way, I am an example. I'm not being, I shouldn't have to say it, but I'm saying it anyway. I'm not self-involved. I'm not a megalomaniac. I have almost no suffering in my life at all. I wake up, I meditate, I do my Tai Chi and my yoga. I tell my wife I love her. I drink my coffee with lion's mane tea and turmeric and black pepper and the whole thing. And then I look at my emails, and then I just get a massage every day and a steam bath every day. It's my life.
Good lifestyle. So as we wrap up here, I got 2 final questions for you, Lewis.
Yes.
What would the Lewis of today say to the Lewis that was 22 all those years ago?
You're going to laugh when I tell you this, and you're not going to see this coming. It's only because my testosterone has dropped.
Yep.
Picking up girls and making love ain't that important. When I was 22 years old, that was all that was important, aside from doing my work. I mean, I listened to tapes of myself when I was 22. It's the same material. My material hasn't changed at all. It's just my experience of the material That's changed.
There you go. So what would the Lewis of 22 say about the Lewis of today if he were observing the Lewis of today?
I am so proud and so grateful that my testosterone levels dropped and that picking up girls just ain't that important anymore.
And because of that, he would say the Lewis of today, now that he's released that, the Lewis of today now is.
Well, I like to think I'm a humble Yoda, that I got 98% of it handled, and I don't say that arrogantly. And the 2% I'm struggling with is the same thing everybody else struggles with: anger, lust, greed, vanity, attachment, people who pissed me off 40 years ago, I want to get revenge against, you know, fighting with my wife about stuff instead of just saying yes, dear, and surrendering. And I'll tell you what's different. I wake up every morning and the first thing I say is, son of a bitch, I'm still alive.
Sounds like the Lewis of 22 would be saying, yep, he's still walking the path. He's still walking his talk.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
So
Lewis,
by
this,
the way, they can get me, just so we don't forget it, asklewis.com.
yeah,
Lewiss. You go to asklewis.com. It'll say thanks a lot, and click over here if you want to get more of me.
yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Is there any other way that people could get in touch with you? We can put that in the comments below the interview.
Well, they can email me at Lewis Coaches, Lewiss, coaches at gmail.com. And just say, Lewis, I don't even know what you do, but you sounded interesting. Could you send me a couple of links to what you do? I have it all, algorithmed now. I have links for everything. Just send me a couple of links where I could read your stuff for free. Send me a link to where you got those $5 a month courses.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Lewis, this is just a lifelong. We could have talked for. I feel this way about every interview I do. We could have talked for hours. This
Well,
has been so
Paul,
much fun.
I'm always open to coming on again and going deep
Yep.
if you want to. In fact, I feel so honored, and I'm grateful you reached out to me when you did.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Stick around for just a moment. We'll talk afterwards, and
Yeah,
I'll
thanks.
end the stream here and the recording here. Empowered Soul Network. This is the first interview of the day. We've got some more coming up. Got some beautiful things coming this week, so stay tuned. Have a great afternoon.